Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another For the Badge football video. We haven't uploaded in 5 or 6 days. We're slacking a little bit, but we're tired. We're tired. We're getting back into club football. But today we have an international video for you guys comparing two CONCACAF teams ahead of the 2026 World Cup. Still milking the World Cup in some way since it just ended. USA versus Mexico. So we're just going to give our opinions on which team looks better ahead of the World Cup, where they're both co-hosting. And yeah, so we'll let you guys know who we think will be better. Then give your opinions in the comments, please. There's been a lot of engagement recently on videos about our opinions, your opinions, and so on and so forth. So we greatly encourage that. And thank you very much. Subscribe, like the video, do all those things. So we'll go aspect by aspect regarding each nation. Number one, I just want to start with best youth. I think that's the most key thing ahead of the World Cup. 4 years from now is a long time. A lot of time for these players to develop, to get to higher teams, leagues, things like that. But I think right now the clear obvious who has a better youth, and that's the USA.
Absolutely,
and 100%. And it hurts me to say all this because I'm sorry I'm wearing my New Mexico kit I got for Christmas. But USA has a clear and obvious better U23 core. And we saw a lot of it in this past World Cup. I mean, midfield, Weston McKennie, Tyler Adams, phenomenal. Sergio Dest on the right, phenomenal. Pulisic still going to be pretty young by then, phenomenal. And we got many more. Gio Reyna we didn't really see, but he has arguably the highest ceiling in both teams. Going into it, even Ricardo Pepi, who we didn't see disappointingly. Way more players I can name off. But Mexico, when you think of youth prospects that are going to be in a green kit, by then there's not many that come to mind that we don't know of already, or we don't know, that are already a key part. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like that being Lozano. Of course, he was like one of the biggest prospects coming out of Mexico in recent history. Edson Alvarez over in Ajax, he might move to Chelsea, by the way, in this upcoming month. There's still rumors of that. Let's see who else. Santi Jimenez wasn't even in the World Cup squad, but he's an upcoming prospect too. Not too much else though. I would say Santi Munoz at Newcastle, maybe. Vega played a key part in Mexico's attack, even though it wasn't able to do much. Yeah. Arsenal have what's his name? Marcelo Flores at Arsenal, who's on loan in Spain right now at Oviedo. Like there's a few names, right? But no one with the ceilings of American players, which is so weird to me. That's never been true. I don't know what your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it's I don't want to. I had this conversation with my dad, and so I don't want to talk about Mexico players in a bad way. But I was talking with him. We were saying that they like to stay in Mexico because it's comfortable. It's near family, if you will, and in a place that they are cool with. And so a lot of Mexico players that even some names that we've never even heard of that could be good, but they tend to stay there or places like that. And because of that, I feel like they miss out on the opportunity to really develop in these tougher leagues. And like I said, some players, I guarantee you, and we all know this, there's players out there who have potential, but needed the right encouragement, the right development, the right training, the right circumstances, and they haven't gotten it. And so I guarantee there's some good Mexico youngsters out there right now that we have not heard of that just aren't in the right spot to reach that next level. And while the U.S., on the other hand, I feel like they're pushing themselves to get out. The Bundesliga has been great for the Bundesliga is just amazing for developing talent in general. I love the Bundesliga for that reason.
Of course.
We can name a couple that have been through the Bundesliga, whether they made it big or not. They at least have been developing there. Yeah. Some coming to England now. Some in the Netherlands is pretty popular for them as well. The Netherlands is a big spot. They were Divisie. So I feel like American players just tend to take that step more than Mexico players. And so if you have 100 American players to, say, 20 Mexico players, there's a better chance you're going to get more good American players in the future than Mexico players will get, or the Mexico team will get. So it's just kind of it's just kind of the mathematics of it. You get more players, and so more likely chance you'll have some good ones in 4 8 years. And I think
Yeah.
Mexico players. Again, I'm not a huge Mexico nerd. I don't know all the stuff about the national team. I'm very much just kind of know the basics, but I feel like I just have a feeling that's kind of partially why we made, like we mentioned, so many American players and talent compared to Mexico right now.
Yeah. I mean, you think about you mentioned the Bundesliga.
Yeah.
US's best player right now, Christian Pulisic, went through Dortmund, got him
Yeah.
a huge move to Chelsea in the Premier League. Joe Scally right now is bossing it. He's playing like almost every minute for Mönchengladbach over there. Who else? Gio Reyna. Like I said, the highest ceiling. He's playing for Dortmund right now. He might not be the most consistent player over there, but he getting game time over there. And then you said Netherlands. Ricardo Pepi's over there right now. And a lot of Mexican players over there. Lozano came through the Eredivisie at PSV.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Santi Jimenez at Feyenoord. Edson Alvarez at Ajax. But you're totally right. I like the idea that Mexican players tend to not leave Mexico because of it might be comfort, maybe another number of things that we don't know about, but I have a list put up here of it's 20 footballers who could wear the green kit of Mexico in 2026, and there's maybe out of 20 there's maybe I count 6 abroad, the rest of them still in Mexico, which is fine. Like Mexico's a good league, right? But another thing with Mexico is there's no growth. Like Mexico League is a Mexican league. The MLS is American league, but it's starting to implement people from abroad coming over,
especially from Central America as well.
Especially from Central America. Yeah. I don't know who. I think is it Seattle Timbers or Cincinnati? One of those teams just signed. I think he's a Brazilian, but he came from Europe, and he was one of the highest goal scorers in the Europa League. They just signed him. LAFC signing Chiellini from Italy. You know, like Diego Almada from Argentina at Atlanta United, who just won the World Cup. Go ahead.
Sorry, to your point, I agree. I agree with you that the Mexico League is not expanding to the U.S., but I think it's also a little unfair considering how much of a powerhouse the U.S. is commercially. 100%. So the pool is always going to be greater than Mexico. So, but even with me trying to cut Mexico some slack, it doesn't not deny the fact that while the MLS is slowly progressing towards a higher level, and because of that, having more talent and maybe also showing off their talent, the U.S. talent more, allowing them to go abroad more. Mexico is not, and I know for Justice here, he'll probably start arguing for the Mexican League, but he's not. So we can say that Mexican League just isn't.
It's falling behind. It's falling behind a little bit. Yeah, and that's like, you know, me saying these players from abroad are coming over. Like, it's good for developing players in MLS, right? Not many people do, but we have seen players developing MLS and go abroad and succeed over there. Miguel Almiron is a key example of that right now. Ricardo Pepi is becoming an example of that. But you have these players from different countries with their own play styles. They grew up playing Ecuadorian football, Argentinian football, blah blah. They bring that to the MLS. Players in MLS have the ability to play against that, right? And there's no normally countries have a set way of playing soccer. The American League doesn't have its own way of playing soccer yet, because I feel of the amount of people coming in. The only way that people associate with soccer, with American soccer, is it's bad, which is true, but it's like you have, you know, like the English Premier League. English Premier League is a physical one. Serie A is a physical one. Some leagues have more. You need more flair to succeed. Things like that. But if you're only staying in Mexico and trying to develop in Mexico, you're only playing with a Mexican style of football. You can't go to Europe and play with the Europeans and see how they play, or then you can further play. You know how to play against that in international tournaments, things like that. You're limiting yourself to one style of football, which is hard to do, because then you move later on in your career and it's harder to adapt and stuff like that. And then you can't really grow that well because you haven't had the experience of these teams abroad doing so well. You mean, like, just look at any youngster, like, you know, a lot of teams in Europe, they send them on loan. Chelsea does this a lot, right? You send them on loan, different leagues, year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever, and you learn different things from different managers, different styles of play, blah blah. You come back, and a lot of times you succeed because of it. And you have different styles of play. Even being English Premier teams being sent to a championship or third division, whatever, you see different styles of playing instead of playing in one league, and you're able to adapt better. You're like, okay, I've experienced how this team plays in a way. Let me change how I play, to fit them, that kind of thing. So I think staying in the Mexican League is hard because there's no growth per se there.
Agreed. Like we know for a fact that, like, for example, the Premier League is known for being very physical.
Yeah.
Probably the most physical league in the world.
Right.
You players removed from the Bundesliga, from La Liga, who all for their own rights are top leagues. Maybe in Italy they're more tactically sound. Maybe they like to be more tactically compact. In La Liga, maybe you have to be technically even more. Obviously, all of these require high technical ability, but maybe in La Liga they require more technical superiority. Right. But in the Premier League, we all know physicality is like it. No league will have more players just going at it than the Premier League. Timo Werner is a perfect example of a player who, and not to, I like Timo Werner, but he could not handle the physicality. Pretty obvious he could not. And he actually said so himself. I remember this one quote. He was like, there weren't these kind of defenders in the Bundesliga. He said that. With how big they were. He didn't even talk about like defensive quality. Like, I think defensive quality, that you could argue that.
Just sheer size.
Just sheer size and strength. That's what he was talking about. And that itself is such a big step up. So, like, to your point, if these players take such a long time, or even never come until very much later in their career to get to these leagues, adapting after spending 4 or 5 years, 6, who knows how long in a league that doesn't require as much demand from you, is going to be brutal. It's going to be really hard to adapt, and it's just finding that right balance of developing your play enough in your own league, in your own comfortability, and then realizing when it's time to make a step up and challenge yourself. We see players who move too soon and they're not ready for the league, and then we see players move too late, and by then it's like, oh, he's so used to his own way that you got to find that perfect spot. It's hard.
Exactly. It's not easy to. And like I said, I'm using Chelsea as an example, right? That's for the longest time, even kind of until now. Chelsea, their mentality with young players is Chelsea's loan army. You buy a young player, send him on loan for however long he needs to until he clicks, and then bring him back. Or if not, sell him and you make money, right? Which is good, but there's so many players that Chelsea didn't send to the right team, whether it's their fault, player's fault, whatever. Didn't send to the right team, didn't grow correctly, and then being a flop, goes play for some mid kind of side in a different league. That kind of thing happens. And then I want to say with like the USA, we see all these players, they're starting to move to Europe very early in their careers, which is good, could be good and a bad thing, like you said. But so far I think it's working out more so for American players. But like Pulisic went abroad pretty early in his career. I don't remember how old he was. 16, 17, 18, right there. Went over. Ricardo Pepi just went over to he did good in the MLS, went over to Augsburg. Didn't do anything in Augsburg, but he went to Eredivisie and I was killing it at the age of, I think he's 19. There's a player, I forget his name, but he plays in the NYCFC Academy. He plays for the he's played for both the American U16 and the British U16. But I'm gonna count him in here anyway. He decided to fend off interest from Munich and Dortmund to stay in the MLS, but he's like 15. Like, these players are starting to move quicker because I think especially European teams are trying to market them sooner, or tailor to them sooner in their careers. Mexico doesn't have that. Mexico doesn't really have that per se, and that could go down to another things. But I think again, it's like the league. It goes down to the league because we see like MLS academies starting to grow, starting to get more exposure, and people are saying, "Oh, there's actually some good players here in the MLS and stuff." And Mexico don't really have that exposure anymore. They don't really have the chance to look at these players. I know some teams do, and we've seen players move abroad, but the MLS is so much easier to see, hey, that's a really good player right there. Let's scout him real quick, whereas in Mexico is a lot harder. But that goes down to a lot of things too. Infrastructure, physical place, like how easy it is to get everywhere, stuff like that, safety. So, yeah. But I think back to the original topic at hand, US's core is much better. And everything we've given you is why we feel the reason why. Then I'm going to move on to manager, which both are up in the air right now. Tata is out of Mexico. They don't have a manager right now. USA still has Greg Berhalter, but I think in the next week his contract expires, so we're going to get some news on that. Either way, both are bad. But whoever each team gets is going to be huge for 2026 World Cup because they're more likely to stick around until then. But even then, I think USA looks a lot better to manage by top quality managers. You know?
Yeah. I mean, I think it helps. Again, and I hate to go back to that, but it helps for the managers to know these players are playing in Europe. Hell, some of these managers that are considered may have even played against these players because they're in Europe. And I keep saying Jesse Marsh I think would be phenomenal.
Jesse Marsh would be great.
He is a top coach who's doing absolutely wonderful with Leeds. And in Europe he has played and is playing with or coaching with Americans like Brendan Aronson, Tyler Adams, and coaching against other Americans like Tim Ream or Pulisic. And so it's like the fact that they kind of get used to that and kind of see them play compared to, many Mexico players where you don't, unless you're coaching in Mexico, you're not going to see that. And so, like I said, I hate to go back to that point, but again, it just throws that home further. That's why I think coaches of higher quality will look to the USA and be like, yeah, I want to do that. I want to manage them.
Definitely. I mean, it's a good point to make because you step onto the training pitch and you talk to these players and you're like, okay, I want you to do this, this, and this, right?
Yeah.
And players from all around might be able to because of where they've played, right? And that's how they've played. That's what they've been taught by these top managers all around Europe. And then you can tell them to do this and they'll do it. It's harder to do it with a team that's centered in one league, like you said, if you haven't coached in that league, because you don't necessarily know what that league is like, and you don't know what they're being taught. So you can be like, do this and this, but they don't really know how to do it, and then there's no chemistry. You can't. Like I feel like in these situations with any manager, I feel like the players need to play to the manager's strengths almost, because that's what the manager is good at. Like their knowledge for the game is what makes them good, and it's harder then to have to adapt to your players too much. Because you're like, okay, these players don't know how to play this way. I'm going to have to change my tactic. And then it's like too much to where you're known for playing. And then it's just, it all falls apart. But I think a factor too in the manager, this is more so for the manager search, but language is a big one. English is a more commonly spoken language, I feel, at least like very, very minusculely throughout the world, meaning there's more people to come in and manage and talk to the players, stuff like that. Spanish might be a little harder. And I feel like Mexico tends to go for more Latin American managers historically. I think most international teams go for their own country as well, but Mexico are very persistent on that, whereas I feel the USA needs to be and might be more open to the idea of a foreign manager coming in. Yeah. That being someone from Europe, someone who's been successful in Europe in some way, or even not, but someone who we feels fit. So I think that's a big thing because Mexico limits the pool there.
I agree completely. I think I remember Andres saying this. He said the Mexican media want the Mexico manager, which I know he said that it's just kind of how it goes, but I think it's absolutely ridiculous. If there's a good Mexico manager, absolutely, I'm not going to say no to that. It's not because I'm Mexican, but because I'm Mexican. Right. I'm not being against that. But my point is if you can have I don't know the pool, I don't know what kind of candidates you're looking at, but if you have the possibility of getting someone that is just a better manager because they're from Europe and European, yes, I'm not saying just grab anybody. Obviously, you need to find the right fit, of course. But there are plenty of good Spanish managers, plenty of good Argentinian managers that could speak that language and still fit that bill that you need. I mean, wait, I'm pretty sure Tata Martino, he wasn't Mexican, right?
He's Argentinian, I thought.
Yeah. So obviously it didn't work out with him. But my point is they obviously did that. And it would be a shame for them. Again, I'm not saying a Mexico manager can't do that. And absolutely he could. We saw Scaloni, for example, Argentinian guy who's supposed to be interim manager. And came in and won the Copa America and the World Cup. You can't get any better than that. You literally can't. So obviously, it could happen that they find a gem in their coaching staff somewhere that this guy's it. But it's a gamble. And I do think if you can find a manager that's just that higher quality, that has that experience and that tactical knowledge that maybe you don't have in
Mm-hmm.
your national team, then I think it's a shame if you don't go for it.
Yeah.
Um,
I think also like if you're putting yourself out there to get a big manager like that, I think it also shows how committed you are to wanting to win. If you're just like kind of settling in a way, you're just like, okay, we could get these managers in Europe, but let's just get this guy who manages a team in Latin America right here. They could be good, don't get me wrong. It could be very good. But I think it shows a lot more if you get someone with a good pedigree and from abroad, regardless of nationality and language spoken and stuff like that. It's like if Mexico were to somehow, this is just top of my head, if they're just to
yeah,
sign like a Zinedine Zidane, right? Never gonna happen, but something like that. French guy, big name from Europe, only ever been in Europe. It's like, whoa, hold on, like we're actually trying to go for something here. That's what I think. Like, if USA were to make that signing of someone with a big name, a proven name, then it's like, okay, hold on, we're actually taking it seriously. We're actually taking 2026 World Series, 2024 Copa America, 2026 World Cup seriously, and that's also motivation for the country, motivation for the players. I feel.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and I was I just wanted to do some research on Gerardo Martino
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't know too much about him, and so I think maybe this gives us a slight kind of argument, but he was a top manager in regards to Mexico being able to pull someone. He managed
Yeah.
Barcelona
He
for
did.
several years.
He did.
It wasn't particularly successful, but he was there for at least I think a year, so like that's something.
Yeah.
He got Argentina to the Copa America final, losing to Chile on penalties.
Yeah.
Like he was a good manager, so maybe I don't know. There are a lot of factors going into this and into picking a manager, and it's really not an easy
Yeah. I
decision.
mean, I think Tata too is like, I think of course they did what we're saying to do, right? And getting
Yeah,
Tata Martino to speak Spanish, successful, and one of the big teams in the world, Barcelona, thought he would be good for the team, right?
yeah,
And then he goes to Mexico. Good on Mexico. That's what they need to do. And in the end, didn't work out too well. That's just going to happen. But I think the reason we're saying this too is because the rumors of names I'm seeing coming out for the upcoming manager aren't these big names like Tata Martino. Like there are a lot of them are, and no offense to the Mexican League, but Mexican League managers.
mm,
And like we've said earlier, there's no growth in Mexico. There's a certain level of play in Mexico, and that might not translate on the world stage compared against these other teams who play a certain way that this Mexico can't compete. Just things like that. I don't know. I think there might be a change in mentality in some way, and we could be hideously wrong here, and they get someone from Mexican League or whatever, and they go on to do something great. But it's just not what I'm saying, for sure.
yeah, yeah.
I think ahead of the World Cup 2 being hosted in North America, Canada, USA, Mexico. I don't know if you saw this, but I think apparently all the games, all the knockout rounds will be in the USA. Will be hosted in the USA, from what I saw. And looking at USA Mexico, that's huge for the USA too, because you get to that point. It's what sucks. Okay, for me, USA have the quality to get to the round of 16, even if they sometimes play in Mexico. Mexico need Mexico in the group stage to move on. Does that make sense? Like they need their home
Yeah.
fans to move on. But then after that, if both teams are around 16, that sucks for. And I'm gonna take back that because there are a lot of Mexicans in USA. I mean, look at me. Look at us. Look at all three of
Yeah,
us. We're all
yeah,
Mexican, so we could all go for Mexico and stuff. But I think having the home crowds for both teams would be huge,
agreed.
for sure. But yeah, I mean, I don't think I particularly have anything much to add per se.
No, I mean, I just hope both teams, the U.S. and Mexico, make good choices. We could talk about Greg Berhalter
No.
if
Yeah.
a lot more, but yeah,
We can do a video on that. I mean,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
all. I will say Copa America is going to be huge for both teams. I think
absolutely.
so. Sergio Dest had said in an interview today that we are playing Copa America as USA. Mexico, I'm not so sure if A, they've been invited, if B, they were invited or choosing to play. That's not been announced. We still got a year and a half until that would happen. But let's say both teams are in it. that would be huge to demonstrate what you have going on 2 years ahead of the World Cup after that. And I think between that is the Gold Cup, I think. Am I right? I mean like 2025 or
That's true.
I think so. That's also huge for both teams.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
but neither team, I think, particularly takes that competition too seriously.
Yeah, definitely not.
Yeah,
definitely not. But I think even then, I mean, if both teams aren't taking it seriously, that means that often means you're going to play youth players.
true.
And I think both in the Gold Cup, even to play against CONCACAF teams, which aren't nowhere near the best in the world, but like even just to get your youth players that experience ahead of the World Cup, who might not have had the experience of 3 years prior, will be big for both teams as well. Because then you start to show off a little more of what you have behind your starters, behind the star players that we already know of, which would be good. And before we end the video, I just want to say that can we start appreciating Joe Scally as a footballing community, please? This man, he didn't get a single minute. Shaq Moore played over him in the World Cup. He's played every minute with Mönchengladbach, who are 3 points behind, I think, Dortmund, I think is it? Let me check real quick. But like he's been there starting right back the whole time. He gets no minutes in the World Cup, and that's absolutely shambolic. Let's see. Mönchengladbach are in 8th, 3 points behind Dortmund in 6th. So put some respect in this man's name. Start this man. Give him some time. Let him take over Sergio Dest if he really needs to. It's getting frustrating, but that's what we need. But that's a whole different topic. That's a whole different topic afterwards. All right. Do you want to hit the outro first, Theo?
Yeah. Thank you guys for watching. I think we're gonna try to do some more videos. It's been a bit of a break for us, to be honest. But
transition.
Yeah. But we're gonna have some of these Premier League games are coming up this weekend, so I think we're planning on having some videos out for that.
Yeah. Who do we have this weekend? What are the games this weekend?
Nothing too crazy. I think there's some solid games. Something we could definitely have a chat about.
Yeah.
I don't know anything interesting.
Arsenal Brighton is probably the biggest one on Saturday.
Arsenal Brighton, that could be a very good game for sure.
Spurs Villa should be a good one on Sunday.
Spurs Villa.
Yeah. So, all right, cool.
Yeah. So, thanks everybody for watching, and we will catch you guys next time.
Peace.